Everybody watching this video has heard of the supposed goats of Brawl esports, the Gi VGXs, the semantics and tensais of the Brawl Stars world. But what if I told you there was a player, someone who won a world finals not just as a player, but as a coach as well? Could you tell me who that player was? No? Well, today, we're here to tell the untold story of one of the greatest players and coaches of all time, Rely. Koguryu, also known as Rely, is one of the greatest players of all time, but many players have never even heard of him. And with his recent World Finals win as the head coach of Crazy Raccoon, it is time to tell his story. Rely's story starts in the 2020 season. It was only the second year of Brawl Stars esports, and the tournaments were still in relative infancy. They were incredibly different than the tournaments we see today, with Siege being one of the featured game modes in World Finals, something some of you new players may have never even heard of. To get back to our main man, Rely, in 2020 he entered his first year of Brawl esports. At the same time, PSG esports was looking for a roster, and after Twisty Twick and YDE left in late 2019, they were without anyone left on the roster. Instead of competing in the considered harder EMEA region, where they had in 2019, they went to APAC with a 4-person team that consisted of Captain Coupe d'Ace, Response, Sub Scythe, and Rely himself. They went into the 2020 year with lots of hope, but then suddenly, the crown disease appeared, and everyone was forced inside. People across the world were forced to take precautionary measures, including esports. Unlike previous years, March monthly finals were cancelled, and instead Brawl esports brought all top teams that had qualified into a world tournament in March. In one of the most forgotten global tournaments in Brawl history, the Brawl Stars World Championship 2020 March Finals. Only 6 teams competed in the tournament, with 3 EMEA teams and 1 each from SA, NA, and APAC, with PSG and Rely being the APAC representatives. PSG would end up taking second in their first tournament, falling in the final to their Achilles heel of 2020, EMEA's own Clash, who would take home almost double the prize money of PSG. In April 2020, with the world still in crisis, Brawl esports figured out their monthly finals, and the first APAC version of the year was held. In Rely's worst performance of all monthly finals in 2020, the PSG team came dead last. Although only 3 teams were part of the tournament, PSG came in third, getting swept by opponents in the group stage, as there were no playoffs until later in 2020. Then, over the next 4 months, they would go a combined 7-1 in monthly finals tournaments, with 3 first-place finishes that allowed them to gain an automatic bid to the 2020 version of the Brawl Stars World Finals. PSG came into the tourney as the number 2 seed in APAC, behind Jupiter, the original name for the world-dominating teams of the early 2020s in Zeta Division. Immediately, they were up against the number 1 team in mainland China in Nova Esports. With Rely's amazing plays and Coupe d'Ace's leadership, they were able to sweep the Chinese giants 3-0 in sets. As they moved into the semis, they came to face the Mountain of Europe in the powerful SK Gaming, the team that had consisted of multiple players who had left PSG the year before. This didn't matter to Rely and friends, as they quickly took care of business and swept the European powers under the rug in a 3-0 game. In the finals, they met a foe that they had not previously seen before. The thorn in their side Clash had been eliminated 2 rounds earlier. The team meeting them in the finals were the greatest South Americans of all time in INTZ. The INTZ roster, led by Marcel, had toppled the first overall APAC seed earlier in the tournament, defeating the mighty Jupiter consisting of Milkrio and Tensai, 2 future world champions. The grand final started off in gem grab, and it was quickly shown that PSG was the team to beat when it came to this game. Although Rely couldn't play on the final day, and with Scythe as the sub, PSG sent out a squad ready to beat anyone, and after wins in gem grab, brawl ball, and the greatest removed mode ever in Siege, they were able to lift the trophy, and Coupe d'Ace, Rely, and friends were able to lift only the second ever world championship. This would be the end of Rely's career with PSG, as the team went with a different roster the next season, and Rely wouldn't play at any significant level again until 2023, where he was hired to be the coach of Barcelona esports. This is the chapter of his career where there is virtually no information on, but all I can say is he worked there for only 64 days and never coached the team during monthly finals. Then, on February 23rd, 2023, he was hired by a small, unknown org known as Crazy Raccoon. In 2023, the Brawl Stars roster hired Rely as coach and brought in Citatampo, Moya, and Tensai to be their roster, CR, anticipated to be one of the best in the world. Crazy Raccoon would perform well throughout the year, consistently performing well in APAC, and while Rely may not have been the forefront of these teams full of player talent, while with both the most mechanically gifted player ever and the considered GOAT on his team, it would be hard to shine. They would qualify for the 2023 World Finals, but with the emergence of draft being considered finally as important, if not more so than skill in 2023, the mechanically driven APAC region was left behind, and CR finished 3rd to 4th, losing in the semifinals of World, with the EMEA Zeta division winning the whole tournament. 2024 would be a different story altogether, as while the roster was the same with Rely still being the concrete coach, the team felt different, like there was simply a spark that hadn't been there in 2023. They won just 2 monthly finals, but they seemed to finally becoming a cohesive unit, and going into World Finals, it seemed that Rely's players who, just like him, had reached the pinnacle of Brawl had the chance to do so again. They came in as the number 1 seed in all of APAC and immediately showed out in the group stage, topping their group with wins over Zeta Division and the admittedly weak link Luminosity Gaming. Going into the quarterfinals, they would have the displeasure of facing the North American number 1 team in Elevate Gaming, consisting of a promising young team with Zeus, Luffy, and RBM. Through one of the best games of the whole tournament, the Elevate team took set 1 in a decisive win before allowing CR to go up 2-1 after 2 clean sets. Elevate would force a set 5, but it simply didn't matter as the impressively strong CR took care of business, making it back to the place they'd been eliminated from the year before. In their path was the final LCQ team left in the tournament, the admittedly incredibly strong Reply Totem. The strength of that formerly mentioned GOAT in Ikehouse wasn't enough, and CR only dropped 1 set against Totem. Then they meet. In 2024, the APAC favorites got swept 3-0 in the grand finals. They were outdrafted all match, and simply putting it, Humble was the better team. Rely was off his game when it came to the draft. Simply put, CR couldn't get anything going when it came to the finals. But a loss is never the end of the story. In 2025, Citatampo, the supposed mechanical wizard of APAC, considered by many to be the best pure player ever, left CR for Zeta Division, the former kings of APAC he'd already left. This left Rely and the rest of them without a third, and they decided to pick up a world finalist from the very first 2019 finals and one of the most longestic players ever, and my glorious king Milkrio. Throughout the year, CR simply couldn't break through, allowing their former friend Citatampo to ride to the number 1 seed in all of APAC. The main problem CR faced was their inability to effectively draft through all monthly finals. This can mainly be blamed on Rely as coach. It should have been his job to make this team's draft as good as possible, but for 8 months, it seemed, although CR was likely the most mechanically gifted, their inability to find life in the draft was their weakness. The aggressive pace Navi and the weird focus picks from Zeta were too strong in monthly finals compared to little variation from the standard draft, no matter the matchups from CR. It would result in a 3rd place overall in APAC, being the first time Tensai, Rely's star, hadn't immediately qualified for Worlds. But as cool as it was, we aren't here to talk about the glorious LCQ run of the 2025 CR team. But if you want that video, make sure to comment below. Anyways, after an impressive run through LCQs, they would qualify for the Brawl Stars World Finals that occurred just 2 weeks ago. In their very first match of the entire tourney, a nightmare of their past would return. And it would get a lot worse once Humble went up 2-0 immediately in the sets. But through heroic performances, specifically from Milkrio on the Chuck in set 3, they were able to crawl back and reverse sweep the Titans of their past. In the Group B winners match, a team they'd had to fight through the year before put up one of the greatest fights. Tribe Gaming, the 2024 Elevate team, had returned and sent them to set 5 Layer Cake. The game would go to double match point, and you simply need to see it to believe it. After this thriller final, the Crazy Raccoon team would gain an automatic move to Day 3 and the 2025 World Finals quarterfinals. In the quarterfinals, they'd face NA's Last Hope and the Stamina Mexican team. But despite a necessary clutch by CR,
Can he bring back 2? It'll be insane. Pain is now low marked up. They got 1. They won.
they would quickly sweep Stamina in just 3 sets. Following the win over the objectively weak Stamina, CR was looking incredibly strong, but only one team was looking stronger. SK Gaming was looking like the singular popular team to beat the entire tournament. Going into the game, they hadn't even dropped a set, and the EMEA number 1 was truly the Titan. CR would quickly steal Undermine from them in SK's first losing set, but as a gargantuan does, SK quickly shot down the hopes of CR going up 2-1. CR would pull back with a miraculous fourth set to push the game to the fifth and final one. Following a Tensai masterclass on the roughs, and Rely H's draft finally feeling like they'd have the firepower to deal with the big boys of EMEA, they were able to knock off the seemingly almighty SK. As an SK fan, I was heartbroken, but if Rely was able to win in the grand finals, he would be the first and only player to ever win as a player and a coach in the grand finals. The only problem with that dream was the opponent, the one and only Humble, and in Luki's words,
any last words?
Back to back.
Despite the CR win early in the tourney, the consensus that was happening in all of Brawl was that Humble was likely the favorite in this game. The problem with the back-to-back, though, for Humble was the draft. The one thing purposefully omitted earlier in our story was that despite Rely having been a relatively weak APAC drafter, he massively improved over the last couple months. When he saw advantages, he took them, and the Lola pick on Kaboom Canyon, despite its weirdness, worked perfectly to shut down the set, and CR was up 1-0 immediately. The next mistake was not one exploited by CR, but it was simply so deadly it couldn't be redeemed. Chester on pinhole punt. The CR team took quick advantage of this unlikely pick, and unlike their own, the Chester did nothing to put down its supposed counter in Moya's Draco, and CR was suddenly up 2-0 in the grand finals. The problem with this was that despite the power of the 2-0 lead, as their opponents had realized early in the tournament in their loss to the same team, it doesn't mean anything until it's over. These issues, though, were put to bed once the game went to its third set. The set was simply known as a stalemate. But with 10 seconds left, the CR team was pushing up with an incredibly powerful draft. Now these final moments are simply something that can't be put into the words of Brawl.
To the right-hand side, he pops his super Tensai. Look at his semantic. He's looking like a tasty morsel. And he goes. Able to get away as well with a super, but not to safety. Crazy Raccoon.
That moment is one of the greatest shots in Brawl history. But despite the fact you probably haven't even heard his name before, this tournament, that Gus shot, and overall amazing playoff drafts couldn't have happened without the only player to ever win the Brawl Stars World Finals as a player and coach, the absolutely undisputed greatest supporting player in Brawl Stars history, Kogure Rely Yo. If you enjoyed this documentary, please make sure to like and subscribe because I gave up my mental sanity trying to make this a good video. But even if you don't, I appreciate you watching through and hope you have a perfect day. Love y'all. See you next week.